In the previous episode, it was mentioned that to save their teammate, Roberta, who was infected with anthrax, was planning to rob the community's medicine, despite her conscience. However, as they entered the ward, they saw that everyone in the church had already gathered there, calmly watching them.
Rita, sister, I thought you might come. It is the medicine you want.
The man even gestured with his hand that the medicine was on top of the cabinet. This made Roberta feel awkward. She softened her fierce expression and apologized, saying that her team must reach California.
There's a lab to make a vaccine. Medicine that will help a lot of people.
After speaking, Roberta bravely walked forward, doing what she felt was the most conscience-stricken act of her life. The patients in the ward wouldn't live for 3 days because she had taken the medicine away, but Roberta had to do it. The people in the church didn't stop them. They were kind believers who would give up the medicine if someone else needed it. This only added to Roberta's guilt.
I am sorry. Forgive me.
Grace to you. And peace.
Upon leaving, even the usually stoic Vasquez felt guilty. He would have felt better if these people had resisted. Roberta shook her head to clear her thoughts. She then silently vowed to deliver Murphy to California at all costs, to save the world and not let everyone's efforts go in vain. With enough medicine to alleviate the anthrax, 10K and Addie's recovery was just a matter of time. However, a new problem arose as Serena was late in giving birth. Screams echoed throughout the entire thatched cottage. At that moment, Murphy seemed to see something coming out. Vasquez doesn't think he's fit to be here, so he covers his eyes and heads outside, leaving them to discuss the situation. After all, none of them had experience in delivering a baby, but incredibly, they found that the child wasn't born in the usual way but seemed eager to come out on its own. Then they witnessed an unbelievable scene.
Here she comes!
The baby's cries echoed in the area. Unbeknownst to them, outside the house stood a zombie cow, and not far away, zombies led camels. They were all drawn by an invisible force. In addition to these, various animals gathered. At this point, I couldn't help but speculate that Murphy's daughter had an extraordinary lineage, possessing strange powers from birth. The zombies didn't come to attack but to witness the birth of a king. The people inside have no idea about this. Only Addie, who has taken the medicine, has slowed down a bit. She vaguely feels something outside the door. She looked up to see zombies walking in. She weakly called out, but her voice was too soft. No one heard her. Fortunately, the zombies didn't attack anyone. They just stared through the fence at the little baby with blue skin. The baby looked too much like Murphy.
Congratulations, Daddy.
You did good, Mommy.
Well, what is it?
It's a girl.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Doc, what is the cleaver for?
Doc awkwardly explained that he was there to cut the umbilical cord. As soon as he finished speaking, the child seemed to understand and bit off the umbilical cord himself. Truly astonishing. Roberta and Vasquez exchanged glances. This didn't seem like a normal baby, more like a little zombie. Murphy gingerly took his daughter. During this, more and more zombies gathered outside, all focusing intently on the child, their faces showing a gentle expression. Murphy, becoming a father for the first time, was naturally overjoyed. Roberta forced a smile, but as she turned her head, she saw a room full of zombies. Her face turned pale immediately. Simultaneously, the baby started crying suddenly. The zombies immediately went berserk and rushed in over the fence as if they thought someone was trying to hurt their king. Seeing the situation turning dire, Roberta asked the agile Vasquez to sneak to the side and move Addie and 10K to a safe place first. But just as Vasquez left, zombies blocked the exit. There was no way for Murphy and the others to break through. Murphy stretched out his hand, attempting to control the zombies, but it was futile. It seemed the zombies were drawn to the baby. Now, their only option was to climb to higher ground as much as possible. Just when they were all anxious and out of options, suddenly, the entire room quieted down, and the zombies all turned their heads in unison.
My baby, you damn dirty
Perhaps this is the power and courage of a mother's love. They didn't hesitate and quickly ran towards the door during this brief respite. At this moment, the usually carefree Murphy finally remembered Serena, but when he looked back, it was too late. Serena was heavily surrounded by zombies. It was at this moment that Murphy regretted his previous attitude towards Serena, regretting not taking good care of her and not fulfilling his responsibilities as a husband and father. Just like that, Serena was pinned to the ground by zombies, her screams echoing in Roberta and the others' ears. 30 seconds later, Serena's eyes turned pale, and she became a zombie.
I give you mercy.
The next day, the X-Squad stopped by the roadside to rest. Only Murphy sat at a distance, smiling foolishly at his daughter. Roberta sat next to Murphy and handed him a crumpled paper, which was the name Serena had previously picked for the child. Murphy opened it but wasn't very satisfied, as it read Sarah Ellen Caroline, none of which were to his liking. After much thought, Murphy finally named his daughter Lucy.
The first of your kind. Is she perfect?
Roberta, not wanting to dampen his spirits, simply nodded in agreement. Anyone could see the child was different from humans, but at this point, all they could do was wish Murphy well in his fatherhood. But who would have thought that they'd get into a lot of trouble later on in the journey because of this baby? 10K pulls the slingshot full of power and aims at the zombies 2 meters away. The gear hits the zombies squarely in the brow with great speed, and then the blood-stained gear slithers to the side of the road. They were the X-Squad leaving the church, and unfortunately, they once again encountered a horde of zombies. Roberta and Vasquez were forced to bring out their most handy weapons, killing one zombie after another that approached. Doc, not to be outdone, though old, demonstrated his experience and skill with a club, making it impossible for zombies to get close to him. But if we talk about lethality, Addie's modified baseball bat was the real weapon of mass destruction. Roberta also once again used her signature move, the triple slash. It turns out the reason they were being pursued and blocked by so many zombies was all because of Murphy's daughter, Lucy. In his arms, this little one has been extraordinary from birth. Wherever Lucy is, zombies within several kilometers can sense her presence and gather simultaneously. Murphy stretched out his left hand again, preparing to push back the zombies with his will. However, the zombies merely paused for 2 seconds before continuing their approach. Doc was caught off guard. This guy really has the guts to throw it. Lucy, in mid-air, was not scared but found it amusing and laughed joyfully. Doc caught Lucy, and Murphy breathed a sigh of relief. But Doc was now in distress. The little one was like a hot potato, and he quickly ran into a nearby abandoned bus to hide. After a while, Doc found the door switch and pressed it, but when he looked up, he saw a bunch of radiation-affected zombies on the bus seats. Doc hurriedly covered the child, fearing any sound from the little ancestor. As he finished speaking, the zombies began to tremble, seemingly waking up. The zombies, seeing a living person in front of them, started to stand up. Hearing the calls for help, after dealing with the outside zombies, Addie and Roberta quickly came to pry the door. Fortunately, the bus was old and not well maintained, so the door was easily opened. Doc narrowly escaped death, but the situation was far from over. There were still dozens of zombies in the bus. Doc didn't want to be the center of attention and threw the baby to Addie. The zombies immediately turned their direction and headed towards Addie. Addie then threw the child to Roberta. The zombies came down from the bus one by one, but they were not difficult to deal with. Ten minutes later, the fight was over. Roberta opened the swaddle, and the child looked fine, not scared at all. At this point, Murphy finally came running out. Everyone was speechless. They then continued on their way to California. 5 hours later, they stopped in a forest. Doc and Addie patrolled around and didn't find any danger. Murphy, now unconcerned about anything else, was wholly focused on his daughter.
That's my little stinker.
Oh,
Have you smelled yourself lately? Please.
Doc, looking at Murphy walking away, came over to the others and said,
hey, is anybody else worried about the baby?
They might not say anything on the surface, but privately they still had their discussions. Vasquez believed that having the child with them would eventually doom them all. Addie thought she was just a baby. Roberta interrupted everyone, saying this little one was not just any child but a special being. In the future, Lucy could either become the savior of humanity or the queen of the zombies, completely annihilating mankind, so they needed to constantly observe Lucy's growth, and if there was any deviation, they would do what they had to do. With that, the discussion ended, and they all dispersed. Vasquez's eyes were always on them. Seeing them walk away, he picked up his backpack and headed into the depths of the forest. Murphy was also very vigilant. He worried that the X-Squad would think his daughter was slowing them down and would abandon her. That's why he never let anyone touch Lucy. Meanwhile, 10K found a pond not far away. He made a simple fishing rig and, to his surprise, caught 3 big fish, holding his spoils. 10K was about to go back to boast, but through the trees, he saw a figure, the sneaky Vasquez. Vasquez looked like he was up to something. 10K didn't alarm him but instead went back to the camp.
Got some trout.
Kid, you are a fishing guru. What's your secret?
They were all happy. It looked like they could improve their meal tonight. That's when Roberta noticed Vasquez was missing. 10K mentioned what he saw, that Vasquez seemed to have gone towards the town to the south. Roberta found it strange. It wasn't the first or second time Vasquez had disappeared without notice. She decided to follow and see. After jogging for 5 minutes, Roberta finally saw Vasquez from a distance. Vasquez was walking and talking on a walkie-talkie, clearly in contact with someone outside. Could Vasquez have accomplices? Half an hour later, Vasquez arrived at the small town to the south. Roberta didn't alarm him but followed him. Vasquez ran into a hospital. Roberta, from around the corner, heard some sparse talking. Using binoculars, she saw Vasquez walking forward with his hands raised, meeting 2 men wearing ghost masks. So that was it. Vasquez had been colluding with the 0 Point group, likely betraying them. But as Roberta looked again, there seemed to be a disagreement between them, and fellow members of Team 0 heard the commotion and rushed over. What awaited Vasquez was a beating. Roberta, behind the wall, was also conflicted about whether she should save this trash. After much thought, she decided to help. After all, they had been teammates for so long. Roberta quietly moved to a nearby car and observed the situation through binoculars. Poor Vasquez was getting beaten again, and it looked like they were about to kill him. With time running out, Roberta whistled a signal. Vasquez took advantage of the chaos, picked up a pistol from the ground, and shot while retreating, but the enemies were hiding behind motorcycles. Vasquez couldn't hit them and was instead shot in the abdomen. Roberta no longer hid, rushed up, and fired to suppress the enemies. Then she dragged Vasquez back. A bullet went straight through Roberta's shoulder blade.